Okay. So I think last Friday, right? We left on, the grid, CSS grid, and
Mm,
then we stopped at, if I could remember, we stopped here. We were from the introduction, and then we went to grid container.
mm,
Then I talk about all the display grid or inline grid. I talk about this container and then the display grid. Now telling the container that you want your display to be in grid, and
mm,
then or inline grid, which you don't have any space,
mm,
but the grid you have the space, right?
yeah,
So we went to the grid tracks, which consists of all these grid template columns, grid template rows, and grid templates areas, right?
yeah,
So I talked about all of these, and then we looked at the grid template columns, where we talk about the units or the values of it being fixed units or percentage or fraction, or you can use auto or repeat, or you can use minimum maximum units, right? So we talk about all of this, and then we stopped here, right? Template rows, we talk about it, and then we stop here. This is where we stopped. So what we are going to continue is we are going to continue with the grid gaps. This one is something which is easier. I hope you understand it easier. So let's go back to our VS Code. And this was the last Friday's code, right? And then if I should open the HTML, you see that we have all these divs from 1 to 9, which represent this from 1
mm.
to 9. That is the grid items, right? So if it were to be flex, what name should I call these children's?
Legs.
Flex what? Because they are grid, now I call them grid items, right? But if they are what? They are flex, I call them flex items, right?
Mm, yeah,
The children, that the children. So you have to know the difference. Flex items, and this one is what? Flex container. If it is grid, grid container, grid items.
mm,
You understand? So it's the same to just change the ways, right?
yeah,
So always note about that. And then here we target the container, which is this container. We give the background as what? Dodger blue. And then we give a what? A padding of 10 pixels, right? Then we target the each what? Div. Each what? Div. This one, this div here. Each of them. And then we give them what? This padding, font size, and text align center. That's why these numbers are in center.
mm,
Understand?
yeah,
And then here, if as I told you the last time, we are talking about the container. So we do apply the properties inside the container. And first of all, we did with grid. We first of all tell the browser we apply what display what grid, right? Then we add if you want the column or the row, we add what the column grid template columns, which we make auto, meaning we have three columns. One,
mm,
two, three, right?
yeah,
And then let me just refresh. Okay, a minute. Okay. Then if that is the case, then we come to the
mm.
rows. So when we talk about the columns, where is the columns? If you can tell me.
The columns.
Yeah, where are the columns?
The first line.
The first, what do you mean by the first line?
Mm, Like it has three columns here.
Oh, okay. So if you're going to calculate or you read the columns, you will see 1, 4, 6, 9 column, right?
Yeah.
2, 5, 7 in the column, 3, 5, 8 in the column. So we have what? Three columns, right? Okay, so that is why we say grid template columns. And when we put auto, 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 all the widths are equal, right?
So, like you said, which one is the template here?
Which this is just a name. It's not that there's template. It's a name
Um,
given to it. You understand? So your mindset is only on the what, columns. That's what differs. Columns, rows. You
okay.
understand? Because grid template column, that template that you see is just a term.
Mm,
You understand? So it's just a term that they give it to. Because it's if you look at it, it's a template. Because it's something that is already they put it there.
mm,
Like, for instance, when we are doing boilerplate, you know that we have the word like exclamation mark to bring the word, the code, right?
yeah.
So you cannot just ask why there is you can use I because it's representing that code. And
Mm,
so this one is also a name which is representing or given to it to make sure that this columns is its names. So it's grid template columns, grid template rows. So your mindset will always look at the difference, which is columns and rows. You understand? So here we said the column should have what three what columns. One, two, three, with the same, since we said auto, it should have the same width,
mm,
right? Because I
yeah.
told you when there is column, when you see column, if they say column is what we are looking, you're going to look at the width, right?
Mm, yeah.
You look at the opposite, even though you are looking at it as like this, right?
Mm,
But when you are targeting each box, the width of each box, you are looking at it like this way, right?
yeah.
So that is a column. And then the row two, when you talk about the row, that is also similar. Going to rows, it's also taking the height, right? So when I'm talking about the row, which is like this row, which is horizontal, 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 and I'm going to look at the sizes. I look at what from here to here, right?
Mm,
Understand? From here to here, which is the what? The value or the height. So that is what I always tell you to think about. Auto, auto, auto means all the sizes of the columns are equal. I hope you understand.
mm,
Just put this in your mind. This thing that you see here, it has two meaning in themselves.
mm,
One, it's talking about how many columns we have. You understand? And the
mm,
second is talking about what is the what? The width of each column.
mm,
How you understand now?
yeah.
So put your mind that this thing that you see, each one of it has two main meaning. One of it is the column, and second is the width. How you understand? So
Yeah.
if here I clear this auto, the first auto, it will left with two autos, meaning two columns with same what width. But if I want to change the first column to have different width, I can delete this and say maybe I want this to be 100 pixels. Then now it's still saying that we still have two columns, right?
Yeah.
And then the first what column will have 100 pixels, which is you see like this. But the second
Mm,
one will still have auto. And when it is auto, it just take whatever space it has. It will just occupy all the space because it is auto. You didn't set any value there. You understand?
mm,
So always think about that value. They always have two meaning in them. You see when I say only one auto mean one column.
Mm.
So if I say auto, it has two auto. Now we have three columns, meaning they are all equal. You understand?
Mm.
And I talk about it the same way as I said, you can change this to what percentage, right?
Yeah.
Or you can make it fraction. Maybe you can say one fraction, one FR like this, right?
Yeah.
So you see what happened here. This one is the biggest because it takes the biggest fraction, and this one auto and auto. We see auto and auto.
So the fraction is bigger than the auto?
Yeah, because the fraction in here is bigger than auto because it increases. Because the fraction you say that, see, when
Mm.
I'm decreasing it, look at it cannot decrease anymore. But when
Yeah.
I'm increasing it, it's what? It's still the fraction is talking about take all like the bigger fraction of this
Mm.
length or this width. You
Mm.
understand? It take the biggest size of it. Now, when you say auto, it will decide based on what? This number. How you
Mm.
understand? Because the
Yeah.
number inside is what? Is 2, and here is 3. So it's looking up there if it can what? Occupy this number without what? Stretching the number, but the number still is inside. So that is what it is auto. You see, it is equal.
Mm.
But when I say fraction, the fraction it just calculate for each fraction, it calculate all the spaces which are what around the heap within here. So it takes what the maximum what fraction.
Mm.
Understand? Uh-huh. So here I can even set maybe here 25% like this. You see what happened? This 25%. But this is auto and this is one fraction. But normally we try to make, because when you are designing websites, sometimes we try to make all of them equal.
Mm.
And so that when you are using a smaller screen, this one will not be smaller and this one will be bigger. No, all so that when you decrease it and it is in the smaller screen, all of them will look nicer in the face of the user.
Mm.
You understand?
Mm.
So let me just leave it. Auto, auto, auto. You see how it is now. So you see how it is here. But if I see one fraction, since I see one fraction, look at, you understand? So always it just depends on your preference, which one you want to use based on how you see it. You understand? Because mostly if you want to use it, fraction is better because it is very responsive. So fraction and auto, you can use them if you think that
Mm.
you don't have any value to put there. And then we come to the gray template rules. As here we talk about what the columns, we are going to talk about the rows. So here from 1, 2, 3 is one row, 4, 5, 6 is another row, 6, 7, 8 is another row, and 9 is another row. Right? So we have what? How many columns and rows do we have here? Can you tell me?
We have three columns.
Okay, 3 columns. Mm-hmm.
And we have four rows.
4 rows. So always you have to first look at what you have. Always try to first look at what you have. You understand? So here you see when I don't have any rows, there the column size, right? The column size, which is the height, right, are equal because I didn't set any rows. As I told you, columns takes what? The width. So the width is for the column. But when you talk about rows, the rows take the height. So you always look at it put in a reverse way.
Mm.
I hope you understand. And I said here, each value that you see here has two meanings. This value, each value, each as the value there here has two meanings. One is the what? It's talking about here the columns, and you talk about the size. So it's similar to similar to here. Here is also talking about the row and talk about the size, which is what? Height. And this here is width. So here, if I'm targeting the what? The first row, like this first row, I'll give it maybe, I can also what? Give it maybe 200 pixels. So this is the row here, from here to here, row. Meaning I have applied only for one row, right? Because I told you each value here has two meanings. First is the row, and the second is the size. That is the height, right? So the height is from here to here is 200 pixels, and it is what? One row. So I'm moving to the second row, which is here. So I'll apply, let's say the second row also will take 150 pixels, right? And then I move to the third row. So if you see, if I don't put anything, it will only have what affected the first row and second row. The third row will always remain what? Equal. There's nothing, there's no what sizes or height given to it, right? Even though we have it, we can see that we have what the third row is there, but we didn't set any size, right? So, but if you come here and say, okay, I want to add size for the third row, which is 6, 7, 8, I can say also to have 100 pixels. In the last one, I can say the last row, which is the 9, and this remaining space, I can just say it's also should have maybe 300 pixels. So you see what happened. So you see that you have this 300, right? This 200, 150, this 100. So this is what we did the last time. I'm just repeating for you to remember it and understand it clearly, right?
Yeah.
So okay, let me decrease this to maybe 100 pixels too, so that it will still be inside here. Okay. Okay. So now I have my column, I have my rows, meaning I have 3 columns, 4 rows. But if I want to have 4 columns, 4 rows, I can just add here one fraction, right? Can just add another one fraction here, right? You see that now I have what? 4 columns, 4 rows. 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 1, 2, 3. It should have 4 rows, right? But because we don't have it, we don't have any other row, because this one has finished, the boxes has finished, right? So that's why we don't have anything here. So now we only have what? So this one, 100% is just there. It's not affecting anything. So if I just remove it, just still like that, nothing is affected. You understand?
Yeah.
But if I leave it, you see that 100 is there, but there's nothing. It's just a space, right? So this space is waiting for me to add a lot of boxes so that it can occupy the space. Now you understand? But
Yeah.
if I don't need this space, I could just delete this 100 pixels. But let me just leave it as 3, and then this to be 4. So we have 3 columns, 4 rows. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the gaps. This is CSS grid gaps, right? Okay, so this is just simply just talking about the space between, right? The columns and
Yeah.
rows, right? So he's talking about the space between the rows and columns in a grid container are called gaps, right? Or some will say gutters, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the gap are created between the grid rows and columns, not on the outer edges of the grid container. So it's not here or here. It's just what? Here. You see the columns, right? Column gap, column gap, row gap, row gap. Okay, so here it is. The default size of the gap is 0, which means that there are no spacing between grid items. So here, there is no gap. So it is 0, right?
Mm.
The gap here and here, we don't have any gap there. It is 0 here. So you have to always note that. And then how do we add the gaps? We use the following properties. First of all, we look at column gap, meaning we want what? The gap for the column here and here. And row gap, we want the gap for the row here and here. And then if you want to we want to use a shorthand, we can just say gap, right? And when we say gap, we add what? Either what? We use row gap or column gap, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So it's just like the same thing, like for instance, here I have my column, I have my rows. So now I want to have gap. Which gap do I want to have? I can come here and say I want to add column gap, right? And then
Mm.
maybe I could set it to be I want 20 pixels, right?
Mm. Yeah.
You see what's happened here? Now we have gap, right?
Yeah.
So now, but we don't have what? The gap for the rows. So if you want the gap for the rows, we can also come here, the down of the gap, and say I want row gap. And I can also set it to also have 20 pixels,
Mm.
right? So now we have gap for the columns and we also have gap for the rows. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, but if I don't want them, I want to just apply both of them at once, I can just what? Remove this, both of them, and then use a shorthand, which is what? Gap, right? So if I use a shorthand gap, the first, which is what? The row. So if I say 20 pixels, and then the second, I'll say also 20 pixels. So this represent the row, and this represent what? The column,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So if I want it to for you to see the difference, I can say this one should take 5 pixels. Oh, 5 pixels. Now you can see it clearly.
Mm.
You see the row is 20, is here.
Yeah.
But the gap, which is 5 pixels, is 5 pixels smaller. You see. So if I want to use shortcut, so most of the time we don't even say row gap or column gap. We just use this one. And then if you don't want this, just say I don't want. I'll just put 0 there and then move. Right?
Yeah.
Instead of writing this and writing this, it's just you are adding another code or second word, 2 lines. You can just write it in 1 line and just choose which one you want to use. Or if you want to use both of them, just write them. But if you want to use both of them, you can also, as I told you, as we did in the margin, if you apply one, it will affect both of them. You remember, right? When we
Yeah.
did margin. And so it's the same thing. When you say gap, the gap means you're applying these 20 pixels to both of them. The column and the row. All of them should have what? 20 what pixels. But if you want to be specific, you can say the row should have 20 and the column should have 10 pixels. So that is how it works. Okay. So you see here, they added what? The column gap 50 pixels, which is here, 50 pixels. And then the row gap, they added what? 50 pixels here. You see, right?
Yeah.
Then gap, when you say gap, it means it's affecting both the column and the row. So they added 50, here 50, 50, and then here too 50. You understand? So and when you apply two of them, this one is for the row and this one is for the column. Column is 100, here is 100. Here, which is the row, is what? 30 pixels. So this is just a short example. It's not something difficult. It's just to add a column gap. Hope you understand. Right? Hello?
Yeah. Hello. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So we move to the grid align. As for this one, it's also easy for you because we've done the flex box, which you know that we have let me open it for you to see. We have just file content, align content, and place content. So the
Mm,
different one is just what the place content, which we didn't hear it. But for the just file content and align content, you've already heard about it,
mm,
right?
yeah.
So what does it mean here? It's just simple, the same logic as we did in the flexbox. We already know that when we talk about the flexbox and we talk about the just file content, we are looking at what? The horizontal,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And then when it was align content, it was what? Vertical,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So place content is also a shorthand to handle both of these, justify and align content. So when you
Mm,
write place content, it means you want to have align content and justify content. I hope you understand.
yeah.
Okay, so let's look at the example of it. So the justify content is used to align the grid content when it does not use all available space on the main axis, as we did the last time. So here, when if there is no space here, that um, justify content cannot be useful unless there is a lot of space here so that the other boxes can move around, right?
Mm, yeah.
Okay, so it's the same thing. So if here I want to just remove this, and for instance, if I want to even remove these boxes and leave it as this way, or maybe I think it's okay because I wanted to have a lot of space. So maybe I can here, instead of having this, I can just clear this so that I can have a just small, maybe I can say 80 pixels, understand, 100 pixels, right? So I think maybe I can have three of them, maybe 200 pixels. Okay, so let me see. I want to have something like, okay, so I can have these three like this. I have three columns, but the row are what? They are not set. We don't have any row there. We only have three columns, right? So in order to use that justify content, look at here. In the justify content, you know that since it is horizontal, we want to have space here so that this can move around, right?
Yeah.
That is what it is saying here. That's what it is saying here. It needs to have that available space on the what main axis, which is horizontal, so that it can move. And the values that it can use are this: space evenly, space around, space between, center, start, end. Right?
Mm, yeah.
Because we already did that. You know that just file content has these values.
Yeah.
Okay. So here when we see just file content, and then we see center, you see all of them are in the center.
Mm,
And then if you see this file content start, they are already here. They just started, so they cannot move anywhere. But if you see end, they move to the end horizontally, right? Because that is what just file content does, right? So what about if I
Yeah.
say space? What about if I say space what? Around, right?
Yeah.
You see how it is. If I say space between, there's a space between them. And then when I say space evenly, it give what? An equal what? Even space between each word, each column. Understand? So that is the simplest, that is the example that they give. And it's the same thing here. Around, space between, space evenly, center, start, end. Right? So here is talking about you have to know this. As I was telling you, you have to have a space. And then you have the grid content total width has to be less than the containers width for the just file content property to have any effect. So the grid content total width. So for instance, if here, instead of, let me clear this for instance, if I have something like this, and as I was telling you, so here, if I didn't set each of box to have a smaller species or smaller size so that we have a space for them to move. If I set them, all of them to be auto, if I said auto, auto, auto like this, all of them have what? Three columns with the same what? Size, right?
Yeah.
Now, because all of them have bigger sizes and they occupy all the container, even if I apply what this space or just file content space evenly, you see it is normally looking at this way because it is auto. But normally it tells you that you have to have the width should be less. The grid
Mm.
content total width has to be less. Understand? If I set it auto, it's still less because it calculates itself in the normal way. So it will adjust itself to still force to work or to be inside this space evenly. But if I set it differently, maybe this is my thing. I set 500 pixels for the first 500 pixels, for the second, and I set maybe 200 pixels. You see that it is bigger than the main container. You see it is going outside, right?
Mm.
So if I set space just file content evenly, this wouldn't work. This just file content is not going to work here. Why? Because these boxes are bigger or have bigger sizes than the main container. You
Mm.
understand? So you always have these boxes has to have a smaller what sizes, right? So that if I can have maybe 100 pixels, 200 pixels, 300 pixels. So now you see that because they now have a smaller what sizes, they have this space evenly is applied. I hope you understand now.
Yeah.
So that is what it is saying there. So always think about the space. If you don't have space, sometimes you will be applying this just file content and you see that why is it not applying? It is about the space that the container doesn't have. So that's why it's not affected. So this is what just file content space evenly. You see, just file content space around as I told you. And this one is space between. This one is what center, right? This one is start. This one is end, and that is it for the justify content. And we look at the ally content, which look what vertically, right?
Yeah.
It's vertically, and it also has the same what values, space evenly around, between, center, start, end. So when you are going to look at, and it also has to have what? The space. The grid content total height has to be less than the container height, right?
Mm.
Here we are talking about the justified content. We talk about what it has to have what the space, which is horizontal, which is width, right? But here we are, because we are dealing with vertical, we are talking about height, right?
Mm.
So the container has to have a smaller height than the grid content, or the item has to have the what? The smaller height than the container, right? So here you see that when you have something like, you can say align content, then we have to give a space. But now here you see here there is no space here from here to here. The height, there is no space. So if, for instance, I'm going to off this content and say align item, the align content, I'm going to use align content and say what? Center, nothing will happen. Nothing is happening. Why? Because this is the height and there is no space for it to move, because it looks at the content vertically. So if you say center, how can it move? Because there's no space, right?
Mm.
So you have to have height so that that can move. So I can come here and say I want to add height of for the container, and see give me 50 VX. So you see now it came in the middle.
Mm.
And so now it's affected. So I can here at the same time I can say space between, you see space between, right?
Mm.
Space between. And space evenly, right? Or you can see start, see, end. So always try to look at it as like justified content, right? So if you know how justified content work, then you turn your like you are turning your screen. I hope you understand.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. For instance, if for instance I'm applying this, maybe I see space between. If I turn my screen, like I've turned it this way, it will look like justified content. I hope you understand. So for instance, here, let me see here, I wrote this and say space between. And then I'll comment this. And then maybe I'll comment this. So now I have two things. I apply justified content and apply what? Space between. So if I delete this, look at what happened. So it's difficult for you to imagine how it works because it turns itself. So when you're dealing with this one move what? Horizontal, this one move vertical, but they are all having the same values.
Mm.
How you understand? So when you are dealing with horizontal things, you look at what? Justify content. When you are dealing with vertical things, you look at what? Align content.
Very good.
So just put that in your mind. Okay.
Okay.
So they give example here, space evenly. You see space here, space equal to the space equal to the space. Space around the space is equal to the space, but not equal to this. And then we have what? Between here and the space between. Start here, and then here to end is here. And then since you understood both of them, align content and justify content, then place content is just a property which handle both of them. So which allow you to place both of them in the same line. You don't need to do it separately. So you can see place content, then you see start, and this start is for what? It's for align content, which is read vertically, and this center is for this file content.
Mm.
How do you understand?
Yeah.
So for instance, if I say place content here, if I want to apply similar things, like for instance, um, count. So this, for instance, I have two properties like this. I have just file content, which is space between here, space between, right? And I have align content, space between. Align content, space between. Also look at this. You understand?
Mm.
Okay. Then if I want to apply the same thing, you see that these have a too many what code. So if I want to apply both of them in a single line, I can just maybe uncomment this. Eh, I can just comment this, right? Then I can just say place content. And the first one is what? Space between for the align content. So I'll say space between, right? You see it is applied. And then
Mm.
I'll look at the justify content, which also has space between. When I say space between, you see we have achieved the same thing,
Yeah.
right? So this one is for the align content. This one is for the justify content, meaning I apply two properties in the same line. So this
Mm.
allows me to reduce the code that I'm writing to move faster. If someone is coding and is using this, and you are coding, you are using this, it will help you to move very faster than him because you are writing only one code. You understand?
Yeah.
That all of them are doing the same thing, right? So that is the same thing about this place content. Right? So look at here. So if I say place center, what do you think this center represents?
Mm.
This center, what do you think it represents? It represents just
Like,
file content
yeah,
or
yeah,
align content?
the justify content or the um align content. Both of
Come
them
again?
take
Ah,
I
aha,
I say both
yeah,
of
yeah,
them.
yeah. So now you understand the logic. Yes, so if you apply only one, this one thing that you apply will take affect both of them. But if you want the one to be different, you can give a space here and say that I want this one to be different. You understand? So it's the same thing. Here I can also come here and say center. And say center. Right? You see it is center. So both of them are all in the center. Because they are, if you come horizontal, vertical, horizontal, they are all in the center. Right? Mhm. So sometimes it makes it easy for you to apply things easily. Okay. So I think, yeah, this is example two and space between. So which one is this?
Mm.
Which one is this? And space between. So the first
First one
one,
is just justify content.
no, align content. We look at the vertical first before the
Mm.
horizontal. You
Mm.
understand? So it's like VH, vertical, horizontal. You understand?
Okay.
So talk about the what? Align content, which is the vertical, and then justify content, which is the horizontal. So when you talk about the vertical, it is end, right? So
Mm.
they all come here. They all come here, right? When you talk about horizontal like this, space between, they all are space between here. You see space between in a horizontal way. Now you understand the logic.
Yeah.
Mhm. So I think it's better. Let me just do one exercise for you to see if you can really understand or can guess where these boxes will go. Let's see. Let me see. I don't want to run it, but let's see. So if now I see start, no, I don't want it to apply. I just want to let me see. Hmm. Okay. So let's use this one. Okay, let me use the same thing here. So let's try this. So this is how the code is, right? So I'm
Yeah.
going to delete this. I'm going to delete this and see if you've understood. Right. So first of all, let me just run it so that it will be like this. So this is how the default is. The default look like. You understand? Okay. So now here, if I write center, and I write space around, what will happen? Where do you think all these boxes will go? Will be?
Mm.
Just think
They will
about
be
it.
in the center.
No, first of all, just just think about it in one by one. Don't you can just think about it one by one. You talk about this, where will this be? And then where will this be? Or you can say this one is what? Maybe then you say the name and you see where it will be, and you see this name and you see where it will be. I hope you
Mm.
understand.
Okay. You say all the
Um,
time, like the vertical is the one starting.
yeah, huh? No,
So,
with respect to this place content, we start with vertical and this one is horizontal. So
so align content is
okay,
going to center.
center. So these boxes is going where? Center.
Center.
So all of them will be here, the center, right?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. You put center there. So
So
after they
center.
go to center,
So
then the vertical.
ask yourself what is align content does. It looks at what? Vertical, right? If
Mm,
it is vertical and it has to be in the center, where will it be? First of all, you have to look at its position first. But if you say it will be here, that is wrong. Because how can something which is vertical be here?
like there was
Hmm.
like we have three columns here.
Okay, I have three columns here. Okay.
So all the three columns, since you apply center, I think it will apply to both of them.
Yeah, I know it will apply to both of them. But which center? You mentioned here as a center. I say it's not here. It cannot come here because if it come here, it means that the box moves in horizontal direction. It has to move here, which is horizontal. But we are talking about align content, which move horizontal like this. And you
Then
say,
each
mhm,
box supposed to be horizontal and
okay.
vertical.
Yeah, it has to be vertical. But then, okay, let me just let you understand. So now here is our vertical, right? And we said align content is center. So it means that in this same vertical line, it will be here as a center here.
Mm,
You understand? So it will be here in each center. Each center is here. Because it cannot move because here, if it move here, it is horizontal. But it's moving here, up and down, up and down, up and down. So each center is here, right?
So it
So
come.
if it come in position at here, it reduces itself to be here as center here.
Mm,
You understand? So after being in the center, then you said now you have to move horizontal. right?
Yeah.
So if it's going to move horizontal now, we say space around because we know just file content is moving what horizontal. So if space around will move it what horizontal and it will space it around, right? So if I run this, look at what will happen, right?
Yeah.
Maybe let me for instance, if I don't have space around now, so I'll just put something like maybe 0 here. Maybe I think okay, let me make it like this because sometimes it will confuse you. Okay, let me just give this a space around, right? And then here I'll place copy this and place this one here and place this one here. And I'll change this one to what? What? Align content. And I'll change this to what? Justify content, right? So what was I saying? I said the align content is going to be center, and then the justify content is going to be space around. So assuming I deleted this, right? Oh yeah.
Mm.
Assuming I delete this and then I leave this, or I delete the first one so that I want you to see the align content center. So if I delete this two, so if I run it, I told you it's vertical, right? So
Yeah.
now if I'm running, I run it, it will be the center here. So let me run it. Hope now you understand.
Mm.
Because they are just here in this line, and we are talking about vertical. And vertical here, the center of the vertical is this small space. So it will occupy the center here, right?
Mm.
Then if I apply what? Now, if I say I want to move horizontal, and I said move horizontal with just vertical content space around, then it will space around of each of these because there is space to move, right?
Yeah.
There's space to move. So that if I run this, you now see that it has what? Space around, space around, space around. Or I can say space between, run it, space between, right? So this one I can say if I now see instead of center, if I see start, what will happen? Where will all of them move?
On top.
At the top, right? You understand? You see now, start because we are moving vertically. So if I say end, if I say end,
Button.
it comes bottom. So they are just their work is to move vertically. You understand? So what about if I change this? Let me confuse you some. So here I change this to because if I put them together, sometimes it confuses you. So let me look at if you can catch up. Say, align content if I say mm, okay, space between, and then just file content I say center. What will happen? Just take them one by one and also think about how are they arranged.
Justify content.
Start with align content.
Align content it will separate.
To separate what? Okay, I'm coming.
Like
I think you confused. Let me I'm coming. Just
basically,
let me leave it like this. So if I apply align content, what will happen? Space between now. What will happen?
space between it will space between the elements.
Yeah, you are correct. But in which position? You have to ask yourself. First of all, what does align content does? Where does it move to?
To move because it is vertically, so it will move. To
Why it will move?
remain.
It is vertical, but space, you are talking about have space between them. Why
Yeah, the
won't it
space
move?
it will move separately.
It moves
One will
separated.
go to the end, while
Mm-hmm.
another one will stand in the middle.
No. Space between, no, not space around. The thing is space between. The first will move to the what? Up. The second will move to the down. So we have start, end. That is space between.
I mean,
So
it will be uh,
they are moving this way.
the first one is one, and the one and the four. It will remain there, and the two and five. It will come in the middle. I said, and the three and six. It will come at the end, and it will have space between them. I don't.
If you say, yeah, but if you say so too, you mean that look at how many columns we have. One, two, three, right? How many rows do you have? One, two, right? And remember, I told you, align content, look at what? Vertical. And when you have what? A row, we look at the height. And when you have column, we look at the width. So here, I think the one which is confusing you is the sizes. That is always confusing you. You understand? But if you forgot about the size, you understand it clearly. This is like one box or one item because we are looking at it at what? We are looking at it at what? Vertical way, but the size is what? Horizontal or width. You understand? For the color.
Yeah.
You understand? But here, so when I apply this space between this one will what? Will be here. One, two, three will be stationed here at the start. And then four, five, six will come down and leave a big space here because I say space between. So look,
Mm,
I hope you understand.
okay.
So always because this is moving what like this vertical. So we don't have anything to move what horizontal, it's just vertical. So this is the box which can move up, and this is the box which can move down. So we have two horizontal boxes that can move. Meanwhile, we are talking about vertical. I hope you understand now. So the thing
Yeah.
is, when you are talking about vertical, think about it horizontal. And when you talk about one horizontal, think about it vertical.
Mm,
So here we are talking about align content space between, which is vertical. So what we are thinking of these boxes, which is horizontals. So they are going to us, be moving. Then I come here and say just file content center. Where will it go? That's tricky part.
by content center.
Yeah, where will it go? First of all, just think, ask yourself, what is just file content? What does it do? The movement, where does it move to?
It move horizontal.
Then after you understand, oh, just file content move horizontal, then you now ask what is the volume? Center. So where am I go? Where are they going?
They are going to center.
They are going
Yeah.
to center, right?
Mhm.
So this one move here, this one move here. You understand now? So if I run this, you see that like this. Well, you understand now.
Yeah.
So it's a bit tricky. You have to do, that's why I told you. This CSS Flexbox and CSS Grid, if you know it very well, all the other things will be easier for you. Because it's very difficult when you are designing a website and you don't you find it difficult to make it responsive. Sometimes it's not easy. You spend a lot of time trying to add margin, to add padding, just to make sure that the things work better. But if you know this CSS, flexbox and grid, it will be easier for you to arrange them where you are, position them where you are. You don't even need to use the flows or the positioning. You
Mm.
understand? So that's what is very, very important. Mhm. So I think I don't want to, I think it's okay for now because the next target is grid items. So I want to finish all of them so that I can combine them as a first, maybe video A, video B, and then I'll just upload it for you to watch. You understand? So that's why I didn't even finish the other one because I just want to gather them all and then upload it directly. So let's see. Mm, Drag and drop the correct value to turn the container into a grid container. So which one are you going to use?
Great.
Grid? How grid? Read it carefully. This is what grid container. We are targeting the grid container. And it says that drag and drop the correct value to turn the container into a grid container. So now this is just a container, but turn the container into a grid container.
Hmm. This display.
So that's why I should always read what is written there. And then, and
Great.
then what? Then grid. Now it has turned into a grid container now. Understand? So that is it. I think you can call it a day. Since now I said now we shall be doing it ready. Maybe like within 1 hour we are finished. So
Hmm.
we can call it a day, and then I will meet you on Wednesday.
Okay.
Mm.
Inshallah.
Well, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome then.
Hmm.
Bye bye.
Bye.